So Mark, switching to education, you've got three kids, I believe, two daughters and a son. Your oldest is 16, correct?
Yeah, 10, 13, and 16.
Yeah.
Alexis is 16, Alyssa's 13, and Jake's 10.
So your 16-year-old is going to be going to college in not too distant future. And in what ways do you hope that her education is going to be different than yours?
Well, like I always tell my daughters, girls who know math and science rule the world. So I've really tried to push them in that direction because there's such a need of a different perspective that women bring to to math and science, that that's where I'd like them to go, but I'm not forcing them to go. I'm not a helicopter dad. We're not helicopter parents saying this. We're just politely encouraging them. In terms of what she takes up, if it's not that, just as long as she challenges herself, they both have got a little bit of an entrepreneurial streak. And so, I always tell them that whatever you want to learn, just be good at it, because no one quits anything they're good at. And then once you're good at something, if you truly want to be an entrepreneur, that opens the door.
So from the perspective of curriculum itself, right? I mean, the education that was kind of built 100 years ago, we're still using the same methodology, same kind of curricula. How do you see that changing?
This is my uncle just wrote this book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's I forget his exact emeritus stature at Stanford, but yeah, things have to change, obviously, and it's interesting. We've got it, and I'll steal from Mark Andreessen and the thing he just wrote last week or the week before. I'm losing track of time. Where he talked about, we know how to educate kids well in Harvard and Stanford and these great schools. Why don't we scale that? And I think that's the perspective that we need to start taking, whether it's remote or on campus, but let's scale what works. And when we scale things, it gets cheaper, so if you do it many more times now, right now we silo education into schools, whether they're, high schools, grade schools, community colleges, universities. And that, is just created, haves and have-nots. And so I tend to take a page from Mark's book, and my uncle's for that matter, saying, let's take what works and let's scale it and let's get it so it's less expensive, as opposed to having these little fiefdoms where the university wants people to come in and write big checks. Like my alma mater, Indiana, they said, why don't you build this building, or why don't you do this arena? That just increases the cost of education, because those buildings eat every year. They have to be managed and maintained and supported and revitalized over time. And so I'm not going to do anything that increases the cost of education. And we don't do just basic blocking and tackling things like, why would any school, particularly a public school or public community college, not use open source textbooks? Textbooks are just, so there's so many common sense things that we can do. But again, I'll go back to what Andreessen said, and that is, let's take what works and scale it to make it cheaper and more efficient. And that's how we'll get the best results.
Yeah, and also, the late Clayton Christensen at Harvard Business School, he wrote an article saying that 50% of U.S. universities, colleges are bound for bankruptcy in the next 10 years.
Oh, yeah. No, I wrote a blog post on Blog Maverick basically saying, the school you go to today may not be in business by the time you graduate. Now, it didn't turn out to be right, because I wrote about 6 years ago, and there have only been a few colleges go out of business. But now, particularly with this disruption, you have more administrators making over $200,000 than you do professors. You've got teaching assistants that don't make enough to live. They don't get a living wage, and they're basically beholden to try to, just to try to get their career, keep their careers on path. And so there's a lot of challenges, and the way things are structured. And then, you had Bernie Sanders come along saying, Elizabeth Warren, all colleges are free. Well, what happens then? They just jack up the price and keep on doing more of what they're doing that doesn't work, rather than enabling what does work. And what I had proposed to somebody who worked for the Sanders campaign that they just dismissed out of hand is that if you want to have free college, and again, within the realm of what Andreessen said, do more of what works, put it out to bid. Put out within each DMA that one college will be the free college, and every term, whatever period of time, whether it's 4, 6, 8, 12, whatever it may be in years for a contract, you put it out to bid for that term, and anybody within that region can go for free to that school, but everybody else has got to compete. That way you set pricing, and you don't get this tuition and room and board creep to hide all the ills and the lack of efficiency that we see in the school systems right now.
Yeah, and maybe there's a change it in the business model itself, right? That you move more education online and have some blended learning.
I mean, we're going to find out really soon what happens, because all it takes is one outbreak at one school that goes back this fall and everything changes, you know? And so, you know, we're learning, like our kids are doing a lot of things online, and yeah, you want them to have more human interaction when they're younger, and, you know, you want them to be able to go out and, you know, not play video games all day to kill the time and spend more time outside. My wife and I lost control of our household about 2 weeks in. Now the inmates are running the asylum. So we're learning the benefits of, you know, going to school more. But, you know, with university, particularly for a specialty, there's absolutely no reason why there can't be more online learning, less on campus, and just more creativity. You know, just right now, you know, universities are more structured to build their endowments and look bigger and to compete rather than educate.